I've got a weird relationship with episodic games. Sometimes I review the first episode and wait, sometimes the game only hits my radar once the complete set is out. Perhaps not as weird as the relationship I have with Daedalic Entertainment's catalogue, but they're only publishing this one, so I'll put that to the side this time. Along with the fact that a Kickstarter game has a publisher. Not sure what's up with that. And to make it weirder, the fact that today's subject is even an episodic game is way down the bottom of the Steam description. I didn't figure it out until after I'd finished playing, which, given the playtime was over the 5-hour mark, didn't exactly make me suspicious. That's pretty average length for modern pointy clicks. In fact, it took me longer to finish than Midnight at the Celestial Palace, which was much more upfront about its episodic nature. With all that in mind, I'm happy to review this on its own merits as a complete package. So I should probably mention what the game I'm covering is called. This is Dead Synchronicity Tomorrow Comes Today. Incidentally, that's an awkward as hell title to say over and over again, so I'll be shortening it to Dead Sync from now on, because that's what I named my footage files. Anyway, that's more than enough preamble, I'll dive into the story now. A man hears a voice. A man wakes up. A man is told that he slept through the goddamn apocalypse. Okay, he's actually been unconscious since the apocalypse, but my version was funnier. A man finds out he's in a refugee camp, having been nursed back to health by literally the only person in the camp who would actually help someone else. I'll get into it later, but this setting is hella grim. After a period of adjustment with some bonus world building, a man is tasked with helping his benefactor's son by finding a cure for his disease. A disease which is usually treated by hauling the victims away forever and shooting anyone who tries to make that thing not happen. All in exchange for finding out who the hell the man really is, or who he was before the world went to poop. And he's probably named Michael, we're not 100% sure, but the name kinda sticks regardless. The backstory here is that an event called the Great Wave happened, which was probably an explosion or something, it's vague, which reduced the planet to this post-apocalyptic state of not good and left a giant eye-like rift in the sky. Lacking a solution for all the broken technology this event created, and with essential supplies dwindling, the army takes over and the refugee camps essentially become concentration camps. It's not a comparison the game is shy about making either, things are kept grim throughout, hence why you'll be hearing me say the word grim quite a lot. Grim. You witness army brutality within about 10 minutes, there's a location in the game called Suicide Park which is exactly what the name suggests, desecration of a corpse pops up at one point, and also, well, let's call it people being taken advantage of. Right before we call it mentally ill person being prostituted, because that's what it is. Nothing explicit is shown, but it's made obvious beyond all reasonable doubt that this is what's happening. If you want to portray a world where society is a mere shadow of its former self, that last example will get the message across. It's also very easy to take one step too many. You risk not only looking like an absolute edgelord, but insulting both the player and the subject of this grim fate alike. Thankfully, I don't think either of these happen here. They push the grim right up to the edge of grimdark without tipping over, and our protagonist can express his utter disgust regarding the prostitution situation. The only reason you might not do that, if they got angry, it would be a 2-on-1 fight. It's kind of odd logic to bring into a game where you can't actually die, but I think it works. There's this fish out of water thread that runs throughout the narrative too. Michael is experiencing the new world for the first time and still has the ideals of the old world fresh in his mind. Everyone he meets has had to deal with this horror for quite a while and it's beaten all but the faintest hope out of them. Their only interest is in survival, hence why it's miraculous that someone even nursed Michael back to health in the first place. This new world versus old arc was probably written more as an audience surrogate device than anything else, a typical ploy when your main character has amnesia, but it's had this intriguing secondary effect. And to add to that even further, Michael starts experiencing strange visions, hallucinations, glimpses of what may be past or future. It's not a lot to go on, but enough to do him a concern and give him a hell of a headache. I know I've usually covered gameplay by this point, but Dead Sync did give me a lot to work with. Almost too much, in fact. Conversations are lengthy and almost every object has at least 3 lines of description. I mean, have you ever had your protagonist walk into an area and thought to yourself, oh crap, now I'll have to talk to all these people? Yeah, maybe just me. In any case, there's plenty of world building for anyone who wants it. Or doesn't want it. I'm not sure how much of this you can really skip. And how does one go about navigating the new world in search of exposition? Well, it's a 2-button interface with extra keyboard shortcuts. I know that Daedalic's the publisher rather than the developer, but the games under their banner do tend to have the same interface and I've always liked it. Left click to do, right click to look. Inventory is shown and hidden with the mouse wheel that feels nice and swishy, or you can hit the middle mouse button if you just want to toggle it. Spacebar will highlight interactive hotspots, another feature I'm a fan of, and you can double left click to warp straight through exits. No problems there. And there's the notebook your character uses for a diary. Probably helpful if you lose your place, but I never used it. You'll use all of these to solve object inventory puzzles. No say the right line of dialogue puzzles, no logic puzzles, none of that. Objects all the way. There's one puzzle which I won't spoil, but it's unique for two reasons. One, there's a time limit on it, unlike any other puzzle in the game, and two, those visions I mentioned earlier play a heavy role. In fact, if you screw up, you'll need to wait for another vision, which can take around 10 seconds of doing nothing to trigger. If I were to redo this one, I would probably plump for touch object to trigger vision rather than, say, automatically return to start point when you screw it up. You don't want to get the player stuck in a loop. I'd have to make sure the player has the items required to solve the puzzle too, of course. Don't want an unwinnable state to happen here. Overall, the puzzles might require a bit of sideways thinking, i.e. some concerted effort from the dedicated, or a walkthrough from the lazy or time deprived, but ultimately avoid outright mood logic. Other than that, unremarkable. I mean that in the way a doctor might say it, by the way, lacking remarkable traits rather than boring AF. I'll finish this off with my biggest gripe. The ending is a cliffhanger and not one that feels like a plateau or even much of a conclusion, more like the game simply stops. I mean, they have a goal, the last lines reveal a twist, albeit one that I'd already suspected to be the case, so probably didn't have the same impact. Something about it didn't feel dramatic enough to be worth ending your game on, or even your episode. Speaking of, I have no idea if or when the next episode is coming. This game came out in 2015 and I can see no sign of episode 2. They don't even have a name for it apparently. Looks like the team are instead working on something called Do Not Feed the Monkeys, a digital voyeur simulator. Okay. They did make a prequel text adventure and release it for free though, that's neat. Anyway, you've heard me ramble on long enough. It's pretty solid if a lot grim, and I enjoyed playing up to the point where it abruptly ended and it left me wanting episode 2, but you know, in a bad way. And there's a free demo you can try, I've linked that in the description. Or if I've forgotten, well, Google it. This isn't tech support with my parents' time, you can manage it. If grim subject matter doesn't put you off and you can deal with both lengthy dialogue and a touch of narrative blue balls, then you might enjoy this.
In a word you just said.
We sullied his name. We didn't know that each second is a drop of Christ's blood, and that only he can reign over the interval, over the infinite mysticism of the fragment. Only he can reign over time with his